turned down a lot. Check. There we go. That's what it is.
All right.
Check. Alright. I don't like this camera being so fucking wide, but maybe we don't have a choice. Hold on, hold this for a second.
I am. What do you need it?
So I can screw that in. Not unscrew it, screw it. Which side is it? Oh, I haven't screwed that in probably in 10 years. I don't want that to be in the Huh? No, there's no way. You're lying. How is that possible? Oh, shh.
Hi, everybody.
You put us on screen? Hello, everybody. I'm EJ.
We haven't had this hot mic situation for so long.
We had a hot mic situation, and we're having some hot construction once again.
Let's see here.
How long has the construction been now?
Over a month.
Well over a month.
Oh.
I'm very upset with it. Can you hear it, folks? Is it bothering you? Same question we ask every week now.
Yep.
We have a very important news. I guess we'll just jump right into that about BREADCAST and about this studio situation. As you can see in our shoebox apartment that we actually love. I love this apartment.
I love it.
It's my favorite place I've lived in a long time. It's like 1/5 probably the size of our last house that we rented. But I just like it more because it's cold and it's dark and I can sleep. The only thing that sucks, this construction is like the Achilles heel.
Yeah.
Because I can sleep very well until 7:20 a.m.
Yes.
every day. But anyway, we hopefully will not be streaming from this location anymore. Possibly next week.
Possibly.
It's possible that maybe even by Mooncast, but probably next week. We'll see.
Probably next week.
But we're going to have a new studio and we're going to have a new producer, theoretically. We haven't ironed out the details yet, but Grant, who some of you may know, the Slop Stash, has agreed to begin producing BREADCAST. If we can move the time, this is the kind of hard part for all of us, and we want feedback on this, but if we can move the time up to 8 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. Currently, we start at, 10 p.m. Eastern, so 2 hours earlier. Is that going to be a deal breaker for any of you? It's almost a deal breaker for me because it means I have to wake up 2 hours earlier. And we honestly haven't 100% committed yet, but I think that having Grant as the producer will make it very worthwhile. The show will get tighter. We'll be able to do more stuff. And Luna and I, importantly, will be able to focus more on like being here for you, being cool, being fun and infotaining.
Swap Goth said, I'm good at 8 p.m. I would much prefer that. Oh, shit.
Okay. Well, seems
Good-
like most of
good
the chat
morning,
is
Mira,
fine
for
with that.
sure.
If you're watching this as a VOD,
Yeah.
and if you generally watch this as a VOD, we don't care about your opinion because you don't watch it live. I hope that
I'm
you.
sorry.
I hope
we
you.
don't
I hope you don't
care.
see that as an unjustified hierarchy. But if you don't usually watch the VOD, but you can watch it if we switch to 8, then we care about your opinion. Do you
Yes.
understand the logic?
Yes, as long as you can watch it live.
There's a dialectical relationship
Yes.
between your capacity to watch it live, your willingness to watch it live, and how much we care about your opinion.
Mark Lovin said, yeah, it is good. And the good one is get dragged VOD watchers. But
Well,
you won't get wrecked.
If you transition from being a VOD watcher to being a live watcher,
Yes.
you are hereby unwrecked. All right. Well, that's the biggest like announcement we've had in a long time. I'm excited to get out of this.
Geo, yay!
8 p.m. works in hell yeah to having Slopstash back.
Then
Look,
that's
people are so
it.
excited about Slopstash.
You're right. Super chat from Geo 2, I think. Am I wrong? Am I right? Check star comment.
What in the world are you talking about? Oh, we got a super sticker.
Oh,
Go find it. How about instead of harassing me to find it, you go find the sticker. Now listen, I was surprised that I thought, actually, Slopstash thought all of you forgot about him. Slopstash said, I'll bet everyone forgot about me by now. And I said, yeah, you're probably right. I bet everyone forgot about you. But apparently I was wrong.
Both of you are wrong.
So that's good to know. We are going to bring back the Slopstash channel and live stream eventually. The problem is that Slopstash has been very, very busy with like real world stuff. But we're starting to get the ball rolling.
What do I do again? Silver sticker.
Yeah, find the super sticker.
Oh, shit.
Everyone's waiting on the edge of their seat for you to show us what the super sticker is through communicating it with body language
is it?
and pantomime.
Okay, I will do it. And can you guess?
Yeah, you have to pantomime it. We have to charade it. Come on. There we go. Oh my gosh. This is a hard one. Hold on, I can help you. I'll help you. All right, you just take your glasses off. Make the pantomime. Wait, I'm trying to do it. That's the emoji. Thank you, Gio. We appreciate you very much. We are also considering, because Slop is coming on staff. I think this is kind of a cool idea, honestly. So Slopstash probably will only be able to do it for 90 minutes.
Oh.
And also, we're a cooperative, right? So there's gonna be 3 of us instead of 2 of us streaming now. So we are considering doing the show for 90 minutes with Grant producing. And then if we hit a stream donation goal every week, then we would do like a after party, which would be just me and Luna. And that would be like old school BREADCAST, where we have a lot less structure and supervision. That's just a thought we had. I don't know. What do y'all think about that? But it would also help to make sure that we can
have any,
compensate
guests
Grant.
For 30 minutes sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. It's up to us. We don't have to worry about getting permission from Grant if we have our own free playtime.
Right.
Recess.
Yay! 30 minutes recess.
We're not talking about the cooking show with Slopstash. So to clarify, Slopstash Grant is going to produce BREADCAST, just as I used to produce the Slopstash live stream. Now Grant will produce BREADCAST, and later on in an unknown future time, Slopstash show will be coming back, but we don't know when that will be. Grant has to build a whole studio in his new house. He moved across the country. So that's the situation there. So today we're going to talk about fascism again. I know some of you might be sick of talking about fascism. But I don't care because it's very important that we all understand the nature of fascism and its origins. And today we're going to be talking about the middle class. So we're going to be reading more of Daniel Guérin's book. Mm-hmm. What's it called? Is it Fascism and Big Business or Big Business and Fascism? I have, I don't know. I legitimately think it's a learning disability or something that I cannot remember names or titles at all. Okay, it's Fascism and Big Business. Fascism and Big Business by Daniel Guérin. So you can get a copy of that by typing that in plus the word PDF online. I don't encourage you to do anything illegal. If it is illegal, don't do it in accordance with the terms of service of Twitch, YouTube, and the other platforms we stream on. But if it is legal and you can possibly legally obtain a copy by searching Fascism and Big Business PDF, if it's legal, then do that. If it's not legal, then don't do that. I don't know. I don't know if it's legal or not. You have to check with your lawyer. I recommend that right now, if you want to get a PDF of the book, you consult an attorney. Call an attorney right now. I know in most of the places people are watching, it's like the middle of the night, but you need to call your attorney now and say, hello, I'm sorry for waking you up, counselor, but I need your advice on whether or not it is illegal for me to download this PDF. Mm-hmm. Non-compete told me to call you. Mm-hmm. They need your opinion and advice immediately and forthwith. Now, if there are any lawyers in the chat and you're willing to risk disbarment to offer legal counsel through the chat, you may do so with the disclaimer that Luna and I do not endorse your opinion. And we are not lawyers ourselves. So I don't know what the deal is with the downloading of this PDF. I'm not taking any responsibility if you go to prison for downloading the PDF. But I did it. But I did it legally. And that's the non-compete guarantee. Y'all sure you don't hear the construction, man? Because it is so loud to me and obnoxious, and I hate it. Why do we hate the term middle class? Let's talk about that. Mehdi said, I hate the term middle class. Okay, there's a reason that I put middle class in scare quotes on the title. And the reason is because middle class is false consciousness. We got to admit that. Yeah. Why do we still have the standby screen up, Luna? This is why we need Grant producing. We got too much going on to keep track of the standby screen, for frick's sake. Hey, we got a super chat from Gui. Guy or Gui? I think it might be Guy.
Might be Guy.
I'm sorry. Let us know how to properly pronounce your name. I'm not trying to make... Sometimes people think we're making fun of people's names. I'm trying to pronounce it properly. Says, hi, greetings from Brazil. Is it hi or he? I'm just kidding. Okay. Greetings from Brazil. Where my fellow middle class were recruited in part by Bolsonaro. We've heard that a lot from our Brazilian comrades.
Yes.
So Tubbo does hear the construction, but it's very quiet. So I guess we'll have to take what we can get. Here, I'll try to just aim it away a little bit. Yeah, we've heard this a lot from our Brazilian comrades.
Yes.
That
actually people would, in the petty bourgeois.
Yeah. Support Bolsonaro a lot. Now, that's no coincidence. And we're going to talk about why. We're going to read Daniel Guérin's book here momentarily. If I could get
it's Guy like Guyana.
Okay. Guy, not Gui. I like the sound of both, but Guy's a cool name.
Yeah.
Like,
Hey, Guy.
Guy Montag from Fahrenheit 451 is the only guy I can think of off the top of my head. Guy Montag. Oh, you never saw it or read Fahrenheit 451, have you?
No.
We'll have to check that out. I haven't watched it probably in 25, 30 years. I read the book when I was in middle school. I don't remember. Maybe I don't know. Is it anti-fascist or is it anti-communist? It's always hard to tell. When you're looking back on the shit you had to read in middle school, were they making you read anti-fascist literature or anti-communist literature? Because they always pretended that they were the same thing. Guy Debord, another great guy. He's a great guy. Wait, Guy Debord is the one that did Spectacle, right? Am I wrong?
Oh my goodness. You better check that.
I might have to. Yeah, Guy Debord. Situation. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Guy's an okay guy.
Mm.
See, that's where that problem with me not remembering names and stuff. They get mixed up and stuff. Anyway, all right. So, are we? I mean, do we want to jump right in? We
Are
did
we
start
warm up
late.
yet?
We started late.
Are we warm yet?
I'm hot. I feel physically uncomfortably hot because Luna likes to wear sleeveless ensemble and then complain how cold it is, and I like to wear sleeved pajamas and complain about how hot it is.
Life never fair.
I do find that this rayon or whatever it is has a cooling.
Yeah. It's like
Effect.
kind of synthetic silk.
Synthetic silk. Silkthetic. Okay. Oh, we didn't finish talking about the middle class.
Middle
Shit.
class.
All right. Why do we not like the word middle class? Because there really is no middle class. There is the proletariat, petty bourgeoisie, and the bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
Basically, and then maybe the lumpen proletariat if you vibe with that, and then which I mean that's a whole other discussion. I like the Vietnamese interpretation of lumpen proletariat the most of all the interpretations I've seen. But regardless, let's talk about the middle class, quote unquote. So middle class is a fabricated construction that the bourgeoisie invented to basically undermine class consciousness. Yeah. And it has worked very well. And the fascists have also used this framework to push their ideology. We talked in the last couple of weeks about what George Jackson calls the buffer between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. Yeah. Engels referred to it as the bourgeois proletariat. This is the group of, some people call it the labor aristocracy. Mm. Some people nowadays, a new buzzword is the professional managerial class, whatever. But basically, these are people that are invested enough in capitalism because they have benefited enough from capitalism that through false consciousness, they have come to believe that their material interests lie with the capitalist class, when indeed they do not. The petty bourgeoisie is similar in that they also falsely believe that their interests lie with the capitalist class when it really lies more with the proletariat. But they're different in terms of their relationship to the means of production. Okay. I'm trying to go through this quickly enough that people who know it don't get bored, but slowly enough that if you're new to this, you get what I'm saying. So tell me if you have any questions. The petty bourgeoisie own their own means of production, basically. So you can think of like a plumber who owns his own truck and tools, or sometimes a small business person who only has like a few employees, but also has to work, to make a living, to be able to put food on the table. So it's like, somebody might own a small business and they do have a few employees, but they don't just make money from investment. They also have to work. That would basically be petty bourgeoisie also. Okay. But they basically own their own means of production. But a capitalist, a bourgeoisie member, makes money through investment of capital. They do this. Tell me if I'm wrong on any of this, by the way, Luna. Yeah. Luna's our theory checker. So capitalists exist through the CMC mode of circulation.
No, MCM.
MCM. I was thinking C stands for capital, and I didn't think about what M would stand for. Sorry. See? Theory checker. MCM. Capitalists invest money to buy capital so that they can sell it for more money.
The point is we have more money.
It's actually MCM prime. Money
MCM
to
prime.
capital to more money. They don't really care about what they're investing in as long as they get more money out of it.
Yeah.
Workers, the proletariat, do CMC. They commoditize their labor to get money so that they can buy commodities they need to live. That's the circulation mode of the proletariat. Petty bourgeoisie are kind of like in this area in the middle, but they're not the middle class. They're not the bourgeois proletariat. So there's a difference between the petty bourgeoisie, who own their own means of production, and the bourgeois proletariat, aka the middle class, aka the buffer, aka the labor aristocracy, aka the PMC. There's a million names for it. Hasn't really settled on a but the middle class is what we're talking about here. They are people who have benefited enough from capitalism that their class consciousness is very, very strong. I mean, their false consciousness is very, very strong. And they believe that their interests align with capitalism. And so they prop up capitalism and support capitalists against their own class interests
Yes.
Essentially this like calcified, entrenched strata of class traitors. That makes sense? Now, of course, there are people who are poor workers who end up supporting fascism and capitalism through false consciousness, but they're not as like absorbed in it, and they're probably more likely to waive. There's just a different character to that strata than versus like a poor working fascist. And by the way,
C is commodity, not capital.
Yeah, well, okay, that's true. Yeah, they invest in commodities.
Yes.
So capitalists invest money to buy commodities such as commoditized labor or other commodities so that they can get more money. Okay. Thank you, McClubbin. Look at that. McClubbin got it. I thought you got it. You didn't give credit where credit was due, Luna. You have stolen the intellectual property of McClubbin.
Yes.
That is a deep mark of shame upon you as the theory checker, not citing McClubbin. I think you owe McClubbin a very solemn apology, Luna.
Apologize.
Is that your apology? You just announce apologize? Okay. Ideal. I can get that. I learned it from watching you.
I saw him. I remember when I was in university, my Marxist lecturer told me that the loan sharks, they are special kind of capital. They don't have a commodity. Their system is money and money brown.
So that's the finance capitalist, right?
That's finance capitalist.
That's from Lenin?
No, that's from my Marxist.
I know, but is that Lenin talked about that in Imperialism, the Highest Form of Capital,
I don't
right?
remember exactly.
All right. Well, we don't know about that. We'll have to check on that. We probably won't, but somebody should.
Money and money brown.
So they just invest money to get more money.
Exactly.
They don't. They skip the commodity
the
stuff.
Interest. Yes.
Right.
So see, like the commodity is so not important to them, they just like skip it.
We have an official announcement from McClubbin. McClubbin has accepted Luna's apology.
Thank you.
Balance has been restored.
Thank you.
I guess since McClubbin has forgiven you,
Hey, Jay's in here in the house.
Oh, Mayhem calling.
Yo, how are you? Apology.
Oh no, we have McDonald's in Da Nang. That's an announcement.
Oh,
McDonald's just opened for business in Da Nang. That's not going to be good for me.
Loan sharks, the highest form of capital. I mean, yeah. They even skip the commodity. They just give you money and expect more money back.
Well, they provide a valuable service of giving rich people way better access to money than poor people who actually need money.
Yes.
They have provided a valuable service of gatekeeping human beings from the one thing that we all need to live under capitalism, money. Oh, they also provide a valuable service by charging countless illegal fees.
Yeah.
And almost never getting caught. Who's going to eat at McDonald's there? I mean, I don't know. I think what will happen is it'll be kind of a trend. And a lot of young people will eat there for a little while, and then they'll realize the food is not nearly as good as what they can get from a Vietnamese restaurant for a fraction of the price, and then it'll probably start to die like Starbucks. There's this sad little Starbucks in Da Nang that
I've never Starbucks in Da Nang?
Yeah, we passed by. It's on the river. I've only seen like every so often there'll be like an old like white person there.
Imagine you go to Vietnam and you drink at Starbucks.
Now, when Starbucks came to Vietnam, like with me, like I feel like I cursed Vietnam by bringing the year that I moved to Starbucks was when the year that I moved to Vietnam was the first year that Starbucks opened in Vietnam, and it was this huge trend, and everybody was really into it for a little while, and then they quickly realized that the coffee sucks and it's really, really expensive. And now I think Starbucks is just like, I don't know, it's like a loss leader or something.
Yeah.
I can't imagine they're making a profit.
They just die.
I never see anybody there anytime in Hanoi, Da Nang, or Ho Chi Minh City.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Vietnam just opened a brand new Trung Nguyên coffee in Hong Kong or something to compete with the biggest Starbucks in the world, and we won. We actually have higher revenue than that Starbucks.
I can't get invested in that competition. It's like, yeah, I don't really care. I support the old lady on the corner who just sells it out of a thermos.
Exactly. True.
That's the best coffee in Vietnam, by the way.
It's so cheap. It's like 30 cents.
If you come to Vietnam and you want a really good, strong cup of coffee, just go to the lady on the street. She's got it going on. We found somebody on my side. I found somebody on my side, Luna.
What?
Alex Marquez Perez Munoz Diaz Perez Thoro Fagundo says, I'm with EJ on the Fahrenheit train with regards to human-oriented temperature scaling.
Okay, from now on, you have to read the full name.
I always do.
Yes.
I've never not. The point being that I'm right and you're wrong about Fahrenheit.
It's just one person on your
I wouldn't
side.
use Fahrenheit for science, though, or for cooking temperature. I would only use it for human comfort discussion.
But like to me, 60 is super cold. And 90 to 100 is fine. It doesn't make any sense. 0 is like what? Die, right? No, even 10, I already die.
Never read the full name. I love the full name. It's my favorite full name there is.
Read it.
No, I've been asked not to. This is what we call fan service. All right, I'll retire it. Salty says EJ is wrong. Fahrenheit sucks for purposes. I think you meant porpoises. And I agree. It does suck for dolphins and porpoises because aquatic mammals have a very different range of temperatures at which they are comfortable. So they shouldn't use the Fahrenheit scale. In fact, we should probably devise a new temperature scale for porpoises and dolphins so that they can easily know what temperatures ranges they prefer, just like I can with Fahrenheit.
Human comfort varies way too much for Fahrenheit to make sense in the way EJ claims.
It's not about.
If you compare-
I got a total. Ooh.
If you compare a tropical person like me to
I have
your
a retort.
comfort
I have a
range-
perfect retort for that, Tuna. I have a perfect retort for that.
What?
Fahrenheit doesn't dictate at which temperature range you are comfortable. It dictates the ranges of temperatures which we basically register. So I could say, oh, I love the temperature to be in the 70s, and you could say, oh, I love the temperature to be in the 80s. How would you do that with Celsius? You'd have to be like, I love the temperature between 15 and 16.5. Oh, I love the temperature between 16.5 and 20.37.
I love temperature between 25 to 30. So it makes sense.
That's not as good as saying the 60s, the 70s, the 80s.
Whatever.
Oh, Woo is new to the Luna the Tuna meme.
Oh yeah.
When we are not streaming, I spend a majority of my time singing Luna the Tuna songs, such as Luna is a tuna, she's a fish, she
And
is
lately,
a fish.
I tried to learn a new song, which is "Để em được ngã lưng lên một chiếc sofa."
You know that Luna is a tuna fish.
See, whatever song that I
She's a
sing, he turned
tuna
it into a
fish.
tuna song. Annoying.
I don't know why you listen to so many songs about tunas. All right. Are we warmed up now?
Very hot now.
Burning up.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're up into the 80s or maybe even the 90s Fahrenheit.
Oh, guys, I am learning how to sing right now with a coach, with a very experienced coach. And I realized that the way that Vietnamese singing is just like classical English singing. So it means that we have to sing every single word very clearly with the tone perfectly, cannot blur the words. So, for example, I will sing a blur word because like, should I do that or no? Because I find it very interesting because like we still singing like your classical English singing, you know. But meanwhile now that your channel is like you blur the words a lot.
So for instance, when you're singing like show tune style songs, it would be very staccato and punctuated, like, I am the very model of a modern major general. I've information, animal and vegetable and mineral. I know the kings of England, and I quote the fights historical from Marathon to Waterloo and not to categorical.
Exactly. Like
Whereas
that.
in pop music, we'd be like, I've been down to the bottom of every barrel.
The fuck
It's
that?
Nickelback. I just
It's
figured
so
that's the most like illustrative example I can think of. I apologize to everyone for singing Nickelback.
So, wise men say
Only fools rush. So the point is, yeah, you slur the words together.
Want to sing that song, but like classical style.
Wise men say only fools rush in. That's like the musical theater classical style.
Rippers.
Or I've been wrong, I've been down to the bottom of every bottle, and these words in my head sing, are we having fun yet? Yet, oh no. I couldn't resist the temptation to sing Nickelback in a classical style.
So in Vietnamese style, this is when I sing, the normal style. The teacher told me like, don't sing like a drunk. This is how I sing like, so, okay. Đôi khi em muốn tin rằng mình đừng có nhau bao giờ. So like, no, don't sing like that. So he told me to sing like this. Đôi khi em muốn tin rằng mình đừng có nhau bao giờ. So like clear like that. So it's funny, like exactly like the classic English style.
It's, I think, just about being suitable with so something I've heard, and maybe you all can tell me if this is true or not, but something I've heard is that when Americans sing, what I was taught actually when I was in school, when you sing like a show tune, you kind of adopt kind of a British pronunciation. And I've heard that when British people sing rock and pop, they move to an American pronunciation because they're more suitable to the different places, to the different dialects.
Marv said, I always thought it was white men.
White men saying? No.
Wise men.
See, it's because they don't sing it clearly enough.
Only fools rush in,
but I
can't
help falling in love with you. Yeah, this is actually what I was taught, that when you're singing like a show tune, there's a lot of echo, and traditionally they wouldn't even have had microphones, so you want everyone to understand everything you say. Alex has muted the stream. Wow. Wow. That was that was rough. Wow. Tough crowd.
It hurt.
Tough crowd.
It hurt in here.
You can do that anymore?
I guess Alex just milked the stream again.
Well, Alex didn't even get to appreciate your very strange twee outburst. I want to try to sing. Somebody said Nirvana is the most garbled. Load up on guns, bring your friends. It's fun to lose and to pretend. It could work. That could be like a dirge.
Yeah.
Hello, 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 how low, hello, 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 how low.
This is ridiculous.
I'm gonna do a whole cover of that song now.
So I was thinking, my favorite song, Adele. When the rain is blowing in your face, and the whole world, but like now this line. When the rain is blowing.
You literally just turned into a musical theater, or like a Disney does that.
Yeah. When the rain is blowing,
you just turned into like the Adele Disney princess,
and the whole world is on your case.
I could offer you a warm embrace to make you feel my love. All right, enough. I hereby decree that is enough. Oh, Lord have mercy. What happened? Luna did that. That was all Luna's doing. So if you have comments, direct them towards the tuna. I'm so thirsty because we don't have any water. I've just been drinking this salt and sugar water. All right. How do we transition from that into discussion of fascism?
Good luck with that.
Inagata Davida. Oh my God. What are the lyrics to Inagata? Inagata Davida, baby. Bum, bum, bum. I don't know. All right. 90 to 100 is too hot. 38 degrees centigrade is body temperature of 90. What? See, this is why Celsius doesn't work for me. 90 to 100 is too hot. 38 degrees centigrade is body temperature of 98.6. So 100 is 40 degrees Celsius too much.
140? I have no clue.
I understand the Fahrenheit part of it. Doesn't matter. We're like star-crossed lovers, Luna. I'm like Romeo, and instead of the Montagues, I'm with the Fahrenheits, and you are Juliet Celsius. It can never be. It can never work between us.
No.
I hate the world as I hate hell, Celsius, and thee.
Oh. Where's your poison bottle?
It's in my backpack with all my other bottles.
You bought the fake bottle, so
I've been down to the bottom of every bottle. Didn't you hear me singing earlier? All right.
In the Garden of Eden, baby.
That's from The Simpsons. The Simpsons did it. What are we doing? This is the sort of stuff Grant is going to probably rein in. Grant's going to be like, all right, you two knuckleheads. Knock it off. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Vietnam, where I was trying to make that rhyme, like unconsciously. In fair Vietnam, we lay our scene. But hark, what light through yonder window breaks, and is it in the temperature of Fahrenheit or Celsius? It is in Celsius, and Juliet is that centigrade. Arise, fair temperature, and kill the coolness, which is jealous.
Fascism.
Let's talk about fascism now, everybody. Sanity begins with breaking the cycle. Fascism. We've broken the cycle. Okay, so we're going to talk about the middle class and fascism. If you're just joining us, you missed a lot, but probably don't need to rewind too much.
F is for fascism. Oh, C is for communism.
What are you talking? Did you just get a case of the sillies? I think Luna's come down with the sillies. What are you talking about?
It's Omega said. F is for fascism.
Oh God. Oh no. That's metaphysics. We're not going down that road. Will we talk about fascism in Fahrenheit or Celsius? I will go democratic centralist on this one, and I will go Celsius because it seems like most of you prefer Celsius. Okay, I'm willing to go with that. But as we all learned from Luna's new video, which just launched on democratic centralism, it is important for me to be able to have a dissenting voice.
Yes.
So I will go along with all of you and discuss fascism in Celsius, but I hereby register my dissent. EJ, did my recent message disappear?
Eh?
No, I got it. Hold on. I'll read it. Do you think it's wrong, a mistake of anti-fascists side with the Democratic Party because they believe they are the lesser evil? This was the big question of the German communists, well, all communists, but specifically the Germans had to grapple with this during the rise of fascism and the Social Democrats. And honestly, that question is too open-ended to really answer. There are times, I think, when it's acceptable to make alliances with liberals against fascism, but it must be tempered with our understanding that liberals are very overwhelmingly willing to bargain with fascists, for one thing, and that there are fascistic elements of liberalism, especially these days. Bargaining, for instance, with liberals 100 years ago had a different character than bargaining with liberals today, right? So there's all these things that are developing all the time. So I don't know, do you agree with that? There's not like a single answer.
Yeah.
There are times when you have to make compromises for pragmatic purposes, but we must not become careful now. We must not become pragmatists. Give me the book. Give me the book, Luna, for it is on your side. This is Luna's book, which we have pirated, our own book, as is our nature.
We pirated our own freaking book.
I'm looking up pragmatism because we don't want to become pragmatists, and I want to use the... Okay. Consult the book of bad ideologies. Page 265 of The Worldview and Philosophical Methodology of Marxism-Leninism, available now at banyanhouse.org/shop. You can get the ebook for free and read along if you care to. Pragmatism refers to a form of subjectivism in which one centers one's own immediate material concerns over all other considerations. I think we have a more thorough definition of pragmatism in the appendix.
Does it have the annotation?
Yeah. Let's see. Is it in here? Ooh. Nope, it's not. We might want to do a note for the second edition. But okay, so pragmatism, according to the Vietnamese curriculum, the way that they define it, is when you mostly concern yourself with your own immediate concerns.
Yeah.
And ignore all other considerations.
Yes. It is individualism and subjectivism.
Yeah. So you don't want to be a pragmatist in the sense that you're allying with the liberals just because it helps you temporarily for now. A lot of communists have made this mistake where they've abandoned the principles of communism for their own personal gain or because they think it gives some temporary gain to themselves and their little group. So if you're going to ally with liberals for anything, temporary or long-term or whatever, and try to form some kind of united front in some capacity or another, you have to never abandon the wider consideration of class struggle and communism and class consciousness. And you have to be a scientific socialist in how you decide to relate with them. You don't want to become, for instance, defined by them or dominated by them. And you don't want to give them enough rope to hang you with. Right? So I'm sorry, I don't have a cut and dry answer for that. I mean, Luna, do you have anything to say or add to that? I don't know. This is what always happens. This is why people think that I talk so much and you don't, because I give my answer and then I always say, Luna, what do you think? And then you go, yeah, we just vibe too much. So next time you answer the question first.
Okay.
Answer a question right now. I demand balance.
Somebody asked.
Define side with. Okay. Do you mean vote for, advocate for, or something else? Good question. Good follow-up questions, the good Morty.
Yes.
Let's see what Luna has to say about it.
To my understand, sign with means that, I mean, it doesn't exactly mean that they have to agree. Like liberals don't have to agree with fascists, but they still sign with them whenever their benefit is being challenged. It's just that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so liberals are perennial pragmatists, and specifically the ideological wing of liberalism, the ideologists who get their marching orders from the capitalist class, they will do anything to preserve the interests of the capitalist class.
Exactly.
Including sometimes they will work with more radical elements of the working class.
If it means it would help them.
If it would help them. And they will work with more radical elements of the working class to destroy those radical elements of the working class. So for instance, here's a great example of that. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was president for like 100,000 years. And he claimed that his greatest victory was not over fascism. He was the president during World War II. His greatest victory, according to himself, Franklin Delano Roosevelt said this, my greatest victory was stopping communism in the USA.
Yes.
That's a paraphrase, but he said basically that. Now, how did he do that? He did that by doing a lot of things, but one of the things he did was he hired communists onto his campaign and into leadership positions in his administration and basically bought them off and brought them in. Now, he would spin that, and probably they too, those leaders probably, because they're at that time in the especially in the 30s during the Depression, there were a lot of communist local politicians, mayors of major cities, Congress people, and Reagan, FDR basically just bought these people up. And a lot of them would have said, oh, I'm working within the system. It's a united front. Don't worry. I haven't forgotten about communism, but that's not true. They actually did abandon communism, and they were pragmatists and opportunists and sold out communism for FDR. And that was a very successful strategy that FDR used. So we have to be really careful. Sometimes when you go into a united front with liberals, they use that as an opportunity to destroy us and wreak havoc in our movement from within. Like you let them into the door, kind of. So I'm not telling you to never vote for a liberal, and I'm not telling you to never, ever form a united front or work with liberals, but you have to look at the historical pattern of how these things work and be extremely careful about how you work with liberals, because and there's also, like, of course, liberalism is not monolithic. A lot of people are liberal because they really are just politically uneducated versus your diehard, dyed-in-the-wool liberal ideologists, right? So, like, if you're in a neighborhood, right, and it's a liberal neighborhood, chances are that most of the people in your neighborhood who are liberals are just either apolitical or not that educated, and they just kind of like slot into the path of least resistance, which is liberalism, but they're not really they don't really know that much about their own positions even.
Yeah.
And that's an opportunity where you could radicalize those people. So in that sense, you have to work with liberals to convert them to communists, right? But that's a different situation than I'm going to work with this liberal organization, which is run by this seasoned political veteran who is a demagogue and a masterful manipulator, like high-level member of the DNC or something like that. That's a totally different can of worms you're opening, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As Omega says, give fascists an inch and they'll take the whole roll and threaten to kill you if you don't give them more. That's actually not hyperbole.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody said something funny, which was they got my reference to Monty Python. Bring the book of ideology. And yes, liberals do often praise anything that sells itself as pragmatic. Yes, That's also like the technocratic strain of liberalism.
Liberals, they don't have any principles. All they do is to maintain the status quo. So whatever is benefit for them in that moment, in that situation, they do it.
Yes. Now, yeah, and this is like one of those things where hindsight is 2020, but also who knows? You can't really, in my opinion, we can't speculate too much about what might have happened. Yeah. There's a limitation to what we can learn because the 1930s was so different from today, and there were a lot of things that just had to be worked out, I think. But yeah, I mean, yes, probably blocking Hitler would have been a good move, but it's so complicated because if you look at that history, it's like the communists were calling the SOCDEMs social fascists, and there was a lot of reason for that because, for one thing, the SOCDEMs, like, the 3 arrows logo, that's anti-monarchy, anti-fascism, and anti-communism. And if you look at the picture, where's that picture I have of the? If you go back, like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, if you look at that picture of like the 2 Nazis, the communists, the SOCDEM, and the centrists and everything like that, the SOCDEMs were wearing like big jackboots exactly like the Nazis because they also had their like Iron Brigade or Iron Front or whatever. Yeah. And they were like beating up communists too. It wasn't as bad per se as the fascists, but there was a lot of fucking like real animosity and violence happening at that time. And I can kind of empathize with why the communists originally were calling them social fascists. But at the same time, I also know that the communists were trying to at least vote together with the Soc Dems to vote out Hitler, and the Soc Dems wouldn't form a coalition with them. So it's a very messy, complicated, shifting period of time. It was very chaotic. And yes, collectively, the Soc Dems and the communists failed at forming an iron front, a united front. They failed at forming a united front. Now, who the blame goes to, I personally think that it was very much the Soc Dems at the end of the day. For one thing, they just had false consciousness.
Heroes.
They should have been communists.
Yeah.
I mean, to be frank, like the communists were right. And the communists were the only ones that had the position that they wanted to take down the system. Go look at their propaganda posters and go read their campaign speeches, which I've been doing over the last few weeks. And you'll see the Soc Dems were talking about reform and moderation. And the communists were saying, we want to dismantle this whole bourgeois democracy. And that included fascism. They wanted to like completely bring the whole thing down. Whereas the Soc Dems wanted to kind of work within the systems, where it's the classic communist versus liberal paradigm. Unfortunately, the communists just didn't quite have enough reach and spread at the time to
because
accomplish what they needed to
didn't
accomplish.
have the back from capitalists money.
Right. That's a big point. Yeah. So I don't. But that's see. This is what really annoys me, is that when we talk about this period of time, and I'm not saying you're doing that, Jason. This, by the way, is not critique of you, or but the point is that when this history gets brought up, a lot of people want to make it very black and white, like it's very simple. But it's like, yes, of course, it would have been great if they could have formed a united front and worked that shit out to block Hitler from taking power. Obviously, that would have been preferable, but it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, at the time, there were a lot of things going on, and it sucks that they couldn't figure it out. I mean, like, what else can you say? Curious what the chat has to say about that. Pragmatism is something I have personally, this is from Ehart, I've personally struggled with. My daughter has a genetic disorder, and I'm terrified of what the state of healthcare could be by the time she ages out of my insurance. I understand that completely. As somebody who has disabilities of my own, I mean, I don't even want to be diagnosed for some of the stuff I have because I'm afraid of the eugenics programs that are on the rise in the West. Okay. On the other hand, I also really yearn for revolution. I have no idea how to reconcile these two ideas. I mean, if it makes you feel better, I don't see a contradiction. I mean, I don't see, I guess, is the concern that like revolution would make healthcare unstable or something because revolution would be unstable? If that's the concern you're talking about, then it's going to get increasingly unstable under capitalism. It's like the writing's on the wall. Things are falling apart in the imperial core, and within our lifetimes, we're going to see a lot of chaos. Yeah. So I think that the only chance we have for stability is revolution, and building something where the capitalists don't control everything through greed and the profit motive. If that's not what you're talking about, I mean, I would just say that, like, yeah, I mean, revolution is obviously, I mean, I say this as somebody, again, with disabilities myself, and I have a lot of disabled comrades. I'm very heavily for, disability, we have a term for this, like revolution for disabled people to confront and overthrow ableism. And I think that, that has to be a revolutionary component of the wider communist revolution. In other words, disabled people need to be communists, and communists need to recognize and welcome disabled people into the ranks and recognize our struggle as disabled people and recognize that it is part of the class struggle. Does that make sense? And I think that's all revolutionary, because you're not going to get, we've been trying to do reform. Disabled people have been trying to do reform for centuries and get very, very little even attention. If communists can listen to disabled people, I mean, look at, everyone becomes disabled eventually or dies, right? Once you get old, you start to get disabled. And there's a lot of disabled people, and disabled people collectively matter. We're, humans for one thing. So it's very important for these two revolutionary strains to be synthesized into the international communist movement, is what I would say. Addenda? Anything to add?
I mean, it is a very, complicated and difficult situation to think about. So, I mean, the one thing that we know for sure is that under capitalism, the system is collapsing. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And I understand your concern, and I don't know what's best yet, but like just based on the situation of Vietnam when we had the revolution, because like the very first thing that we did, one of the very first thing that we did after having revolution was to take care of old people and disabled people.
Yeah. Yes. That's a great, see the Vietnamese model. Perfect. Okay. Jason, this comment, definitely agree with this comment. I want to go back to this discussion real quick though. So Ehart followed up. That's pretty much what I'm talking about. She will be on dialysis soon. It's scary to think about instability while dealing with that. I completely agree with you. Yeah. Okay. And then said, I definitely agree that capitalism is causing increased instability though. So, I mean, I think that's why it's incumbent on us as communists to recognize these struggles that so many people in the proletariat are facing, especially in the USA where our healthcare is so fucked up. I have literally 6 or 7 comrades right now who are having ongoing crises of healthcare, including, by the way, I'm going to share a link real quick. So BP of Overthrow Media is having health problems, as we, has been struggling with them for a long time and having a hard time getting health there. But also BP's comrade was just shot multiple times.
By
and
who?
in front of her daughter.
Jesus Christ.
I don't know. It was a personal thing. I don't know what details I can and can't share. But there is a GoFundMe. I'm going to find that and put the GoFundMe in the link. But anyway, I mean, I know a lot of I've got people constantly telling so many of my friends are having health crises right now. We gotta we have to as communists, we have to synthesize this into our movement, is my point. The struggle of disabled people, of chronically ill people, of victims of violence, all kinds of stuff like that, victims of police violence, people in prison who don't have good access to healthcare. There's that needs to be a vector that we are very deeply concerned in. It's a big part of class struggle in the USA, at least. I mean, I can't speak for other parts of the world where maybe you have better healthcare. I don't know how much that matters, but in the USA, I can say, because I'm from the USA, it's vital. It's a big reason why I left the USA originally, was because I couldn't get healthcare. I know. Sorry, I'm trying to do a million things at once. All right, I'm going to share that GoFundMe in the chat, and then we will move on to our discussion of fascism and the middle class. All right. So yeah, this person was shot 9 times and needs support. So I'm just sharing the GoFundMe. This is BP's comrade. Okay, share the GoFundMe. Help as you are able. Healthcare is a very important topic that socialism wins hard on. That's another thing. Play to your strengths, right? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to give better healthcare? Liberals who are only concerned with the material interests of the capitalist class who profit off of the current system as it exists, or communists who want to dismantle that system in favor of the material interests of the working class, which includes healthcare. It's one of our big strengths. Why wouldn't we play up to it?
Yeah.
Why would we be ableists? Why would we use the R slur all the time and alienate that large group of people, for example? It's just bad strategy. Do you need Benita? Go get some Benita.
It's fine.
Luna's a little sniffle snuffer.
I think I have worse allergies since I got back to America.
I think you need to take Benita every day like I do. So that helps you be happier and healthier.
I like your nose.
Oh no. Luna's come down with another case of the sillies. We have to abandon.
It's so cute.
Accelerationism is okay. I look into the origins of acceleration with Nick Land. an overt fascist.
Yeah.
So Nick Land is a fascist who came up with this idea of accelerationism because I'm not making this up. I feel embarrassed saying this, but
fucked up.
Nick Land is like a quote unquote transhumanist who basically wants fascism. He wants capitalism. He's an accelerationist because he wants capitalism to evolve into fascism as quickly as possible so that humanity will have its downfall, so that like cyborgs and AI and robots will have primacy and take over reality. That's the origin of fascism. That's your origin story of accelerationism. Accelerationism. So accelerationism is dog shit. It's bad.
It's bad.
Now, there are some things people can say that are adjacent to accelerationism that have some merit, such as the fact that for a lot of people, conditions aren't that bad. Like the bourgeois. Well, I think we're going to address that in a more coherent way in this stream. Like, how do you address people? Because the ways that communists have tried to, or at least alleged communists have tried to synthesize accelerationism into communism is that like, okay, we have all these comfortable people in that buffer zone that George Jackson describes, so we need to make them as uncomfortable as possible so that they will develop class consciousness. First of all, I don't think there's any, like, we already have very, very poor, desperate, suffering people that have no class consciousness. Yeah. So there's no historical pattern that like suffering leads to class consciousness. Yeah. Or that suffering somehow, I mean, yes, we should address suffering. I mean, but it's not like a one-to-one thing where it's like, oh, the more you suffer, the more likely you're to become
proletariat. It doesn't mean every single one of them is communist or, like you have a high class consciousness. Just think about
class consciousness is a lot more than just suffering.
Exactly.
And anyway,
we talk about a lot, and Ho Chi Minh talk about lumpen proletariat in Vietnam and other communists too. And he said like, yes, they are very miserable. They have a very high potential of being, radicalized and have a high class consciousness. But also at the same time, they still not like, it doesn't mean like the poverty doesn't mean that they
could be fascists.
Yeah.
And there are fascists. And yeah, so it's like, it just doesn't work out. And why would we want more people to suffer?
Yeah, why do you want people to suffer?
The way that the Vietnamese dealt with colonialism and capitalism and fascism and imperialism was not to try to make it worse and worse and worse for the people. And that's why they succeeded, because they made things better for the people. They they took rice from the fascist Japanese and distributed it to the people. They provided healthcare to the people. They taught people how to read. They improved the conditions of the working class. Mm-hmm. Like, why would you want to punish people into class consciousness? That doesn't make sense. Yeah, I've seen no evidence that it would work.
It's a very fascistic understanding.
Yeah, it's just
there are enough suffering people in this world for you to go out there and persuade them with class consciousness.
You have a huge base. Yeah.
You do not need to make people suffering in a belief that they will somehow have a cousin. Like, no, there are billions of people out there suffering already. Go work with them.
It reminds me of the like argumentalist debate fascist construct of we have to spend all of our time trying to radicalize fascists and like comfortable white people to communism. Like, that's our high priority. That's absurd. Like, that's not our priority. Our priority are like the millions and millions of working people in the USA who are suffering right now and who should be easy wins to radicalize the communism already.
Their whole target is to radicalize fascists. It's very fishy to me, because like, first of all, if you're a genuine leftist or socialist, the very first thing you should do is to look for lower hanging fruits, which is people who already suffering would have a way higher chance and way easier for them to understand about the situation. The fascists should be the very, very, very last target that you should care about, because fascists are people who actively wanting to kill people. They are your enemies. They are the last target. We only care about them after we have recruited enough people on our side. So I mean, it's very fishy, and it make me question a lot about who they really are.
Mm-hmm.
About
Well, yeah, it's like what Mega Haxers just said. The crypto fascists say we need to bring fascists into the left.
yeah, exactly. Like, no, we don't. We don't.
Of course we don't. And then this is a good point too that Stool said is more suffering has led to more racism in the U.S. Don't think it's a viable strategy. And yes, fascists can and do leverage suffering.
Yeah. Suffering, and then they
failures
they
of
blame
liberalism.
it on immigrants.
They blame
That's
it on all,
racism.
trans people, immigrants,
Mhm.
disabled people. The list goes on and on. So, yeah, it's not scientific socialism. It's this weird idealistic construct that makes no sense because it was formulated by a weird fascist who's obsessed with like robots taking over the world. So it's bad idea. Okay. Let's talk about fascism in the middle class, because here's why I'm transitioning. This is a good point to transition, because this will address how to deal with people who are comfortable and insulated from suffering, and it addresses why those people often become fascists. Okay, so this is, again, we're going to Daniel Guerin's book. This is Fascism and Big Business. Consult your attorney before downloading the PDF, but you should be able to find it on Google quite easily. Let me share the screen here. Just a window. Okay. All right. Here we go. This is Chapter 2 of Fascism and Big Business by Daniel Guerin. The middle class is considered as fascism's mass base.
There you go.
Because it's all about that base.
Yeah, it's all about that base.
No sillies, Luna. We're getting into serious reading time now.
Okay.
Fascism is not born solely from the desire and subsidies of capitalist magnates. To declare, Silone correctly observes, that these organizations are only a diabolic invention of finance capital wishing to preserve its rule is not enough for an understanding of the nature of these forces which rise from the depths of society. In other words, it's not just the finance capitalists that Luna was talking about earlier, funny enough, who will capitalism into existence. Doubtless, in the beginning, when they are still playing merely the role of anti-labor militia, remember, this is referencing to the initial role of fascists in Germany and Italy and Spain in like the 20s, when they were first taking power, in the teens in Italy's case. They had the Italian squadristi, the fascist Sturmabteilung. They had these jackbooted thugs that would go, and literally their role was to get paid by capitalists to finance the fascist operations, to go and break strikes and beat up and kill communists in the streets, to fight communists and weaken organized revolutionary proletariat members. And that is, at the beginning, kind of the role that capitalism played. The fascist bands recruit many adventurers with the mentality of mercenaries. But as fascism orientates itself toward the conquest of power and becomes a great mass movement, remember, fascism is not static. Nothing in this world is. Everything is a process in motion. Everything is constantly developing and changing.
Everything interacts with each other.
And as fascism develops, the nature of fascism tends to change. There are some essential components of the stable form of fascism that are present throughout the cycle of fascism. But then there are all these other elements that change, right? The fascist bands recruit many adventurers. But as fascism orients itself towards the conquest of power and becomes a great mass movement, the motives that bring thousands of human beings to it become more complex and require painstaking analysis, which is what we're doing right now. My pain is staked. Is yours? The capitalist magnates could never, in spite of all their gold, have set marching such human forces if the masses had not previously been in a state of instability and discontent that conditioned them for conquest. Instability and discontent. Does that sound familiar? Weimar Germany, post-war Italy, contemporary West. Instability and discontent. The time is ripe right now for fascists to do exactly what they did over 100 years ago. That's why we need to be studying this right now, paying attention and taking heed to these words from somebody who wrote these words in the 30s as they were watching fascism rise in Germany and Italy and Spain. Uh-huh. Okay. As a matter of fact, in Italy, as in Germany, the various social layers intermediate between big capitalist bourgeoisie and organized proletariat, who were the victims of both the developments and the crisis of capitalism, were profoundly discontented with their condition, material as well as moral. And this is the buffer zone that George Jackson's talking about. The mediating strata of the working class, which is kind of, what you might call the labor aristocracy, the middle class. Mm. Okay, that's a good one. We'll read that in a second. Mm. Okay, so this strata, this buffer zone, were discontented. They dreamed of a radical change. At once the question arises, why did they not turn to socialism? Why did these workers not turn to serving their own class interests? Why did they turn to serving the radical interests of the bourgeoisie? Exactly. This is what we're going to try to explain. Let's first consider the urban middle classes. The backbone of the fascist troops was the urban middle classes. The urban middle classes, keep that in mind. Social, because one thing fascists like to say is that they represent the real workers and the farmers. Luna has a whole thread on Twitter that's great about the bullshit surrounding farmer propaganda. Yeah. I mean, I think we need to bring back the word peasant. About how
farmers support Trump.
Just as a side note here, real quick. Should we not bring back the word peasant in the context of the USA? We absolutely have peasants in the USA.
You have the serfs.
What is a peasant? A peasant, well, they're not exactly serfs. A peasant is somebody who works land that they don't own for like starvation wages. Yeah. They're not people who own farms, right? So when the Republicans say, oh, we have the support of the farmers, they're talking about massive billionaire capitalists who, like owners. Bill Gates, who owns like thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of farmland. They're not talking about the people who are toiling in the farms as like farmhands and migrant workers who are actually growing and producing the food that we eat. Those are more like peasants. And they still use the word peasant in like South America, I know, and in India. And I don't think that I think that it's false consciousness to imagine that our farming system is any different than like Brazil's or India's. We absolutely have a peasant class or peasant strata of the working class. But anyway, and that's not an insult. It's just describing the conditions that they have and the relationship they have with the means of production. Socialism long believed that these middle classes were doomed to disappear as a result of capitalist development itself. Competition and the concentration of industry and capital would destroy their economic roots. The lower strata of the middle class, the small tradespeople, shopkeepers, and retired tradesmen, generally the handicraftsmen and peasants, the Communist Manifesto of 1848 declared, all these sink gradually into the proletariat. They even see the moment approaching when they will completely disappear as an independent section of modern society. In actuality, the development has been somewhat different, or at least much less rapid than socialism has expected. Now, this was written in the 30s. Today, there's some things going on with the labor aristocracy in the US. I have a theory. I mean, this is a side note, and Luna, I want to know what you think about this. I think that they're like, the way that it works is there's this pattern where one group of like one trade or whatever will kind of like pop up into the labor aristocracy position. And then it will like get pushed down and then something else will pop up. Yeah. So like at one time it was factory workers were kind of like the labor aristocracy and in America, in the USA. And they were doing well and you could buy a house and have a family working in a factory. But then as soon as capital is able to do so, it excoriates those people. It pushes them out. It moves those jobs overseas where they can pay them much less. And then they fall back down into the proletariat. As we are seeing now happening with tech workers. Tech workers have been riding high for like over a decade, but now we're seeing them challenged by large language models and other like quote unquote AI programs and foreign workers who are working for starvation wages. Like in Africa, we see that a lot now, doing tech jobs in India, that sort of thing. So the labor aristocracy is always in this state of instability, but people's like attention span is too short to realize that. Because if you've had a good job for 10 years with Google as a tech worker it feels like you're going to maintain that position forever. And that turns you into bourgeois proletariat. That turns you into a buffer against the working class. Does that make sense? Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah.
It's just a thought. It's not like a fully fledged theory or anything. It's just a thought I had. And I'd like to know what the chat thinks about that. But anyway, in actuality, the development has been somewhat different, or at least much less rapid than socialism had expected. The middle classes have, it's true, suffered from competition and capitalist concentration. Their condition has grown worse. They have been impoverished, but they have not disappeared. The individuals making up the class have not all sunk into the proletariat. They have not been proletarianized, but only pauperized. They stubbornly persist even today in attempting to constitute an independent section of modern society. In other words, the middle class, when Guerin was writing this, had this tendency and desire to be separate from the lowly workers.
Yes, because they think they're better.
And listen to this. I think this is just interesting, especially when you think about a typical like MAGA Trump supporter. The more, and what is Trump's rhetoric? Listen, think about Trump's rhetoric when you hear this. The more the middle class people suffer, the more they cling to their existence as a class. Toward the end of the last century, Edward Bernstein noted that small manufacturers, artisans, and tradesmen succeeded in maintaining themselves and even in increasing their numbers absolutely, if not relatively. This does not mean, of course, that capitalist concentration is slowing down. The big enterprises are expanding more rapidly than the little producers or small tradesmen are increasing. The latter find the competition of great monopolies even harsher, ever harsher, but they continue to exist. In other words, like I was saying earlier, their class interests align much more with the working class, and the capitalist class hurts them a lot, but they don't want to see it that way.
Yes.
They struggle against that reality.
Yes.
What is Trump saying all the time? Basically playing to this tendency.
Your emperors, billionaires.
Everything sucks for you right now. Your life is getting worse over time, but it's not because of capitalism. It's because of X, Y, and Z. You are your own special.
China. It's because of immigrants.
Exactly. Trans people,
Disabled people.
Black people, whatever. They have all kinds of different enemies that they want you to be afraid of, right? And they want to separate and divide the working class, not just in terms of like middle class versus like the lower classes of the proletariat, but also in terms of just fracturing it up into all these different groups that are all struggling for the crumbs that capitalists will let them have. All right. The latter find the competition of the great monopolies ever harsher, but they continue to exist. Why this resistance? Because the independent producer prefers his condition, even though it becomes more precarious every day, to that of the proletariat. Does that not describe the American middle class right now? I mean, seriously, let's look at this for a second. The independent producer prefers his condition. We're talking about the petty bourgeoisie and the bourgeois proletariat right now, I would say. Maybe more the petty bourgeois, but, you know, even though it becomes more precarious every day, to that of the proletariat. Okay? So you have this kind of, I don't know, like this conglomeration of petty bourgeois people, small business owners, people who have a few employees but still have to work, and whatever you want to call it, labor aristocracy, middle class people, people who are high up, have cushy executive positions, tech workers, that sort of thing. They don't want to throw in their lot with the working class because they identify more with this false consciousness position than they do with workers. They don't want to be seen as a lowly worker. Yeah. They're middle class.
Yeah.
They're more respectable.
They are better off.
This is how they see themselves.
Yes. They look down on the proletariat, the workers.
I'm checking the chat real quick. Oh, me here talking about my hypothesis, I guess. Says, amazing insight, EJ. Wow, I don't get compliments like that very often. Thank you. I personally see tech workers, I don't know if it's deserved, but I personally see tech workers even turning into parasites who hire people at poverty wages, again, because of how labor aristocracy works. Yes, there's even this phenomenon of tech workers who will get a job where they're getting paid like $50 an hour plus, and then they will hire people on Fiverr for like $5 an hour to do that job for them.
Yes.
And they're literally just, at that point, what are you if not petty bourgeois?
Yeah.
They have to do some work themselves to, like, you know, make it look like they're doing the work. right? They're not just investing capital. So they're not really capitalists, but at that point, they're definitely petty bourgeoisie, right? So yeah, that's a good observation. That's also an amazing insight. Here, we have both made amazing insights on this day, you and I, together. This is a sidetrack real quick, but I thought it was a good comment. Luna once told me that living in the United States, communists living in the United States, I assume you're saying, should just not do nothing. You say that all the time. Try to not do nothing.
Yeah.
To further the revolution. In other words, just don't do nothing. Don't sit around and do nothing. Don't sit around and argue and debate on the internet. Like, do something. It's a thought that haunts me to keep struggling. Every person who has class consciousness counts. I'm going to recruit like-minded socialists who've got a radical streak. That is awesome to hear. That's what we want to see. That's what we need to see. If we're going to survive.
You want to survive, try to not do nothing.
Absolutely. What's the etymology of the word fascist? So have you seen the fasci symbol? I'll show you one real quick. Hold this for a second. It goes back to ancient Rome.
Yeah.
And it is a symbol of like, well, I mean, it's not a bad, like the idea behind it is not necessarily bad per se, although once you dig into it, it is bad. In other words, it has an appeal to it that I can understand why.
It has the disguise,
I can understand why they
to fool people
chose this, especially to fool workers. It has kind of a what would you call it, like a populist sort of message to it. Okay, so this is the fasci. It's an ancient Roman symbol. If you look at ancient Roman architecture, you'll see it a lot. If you look at USA iconography from the founding fathers, they use the fasci a lot. If you look at police associations in the USA, they use the fasci a lot. And if you look at fascist symbolism, of course, you see it a lot. It's a symbol of kind of like the state and of the power of the people. It's this like plebeian populist idea. And what it is it's a bundle of sticks that have been like bound together with an axe. And it represents basically the strength of the people together.
I see.
So it's like any one of those sticks you could break easily on its own. But when you bundle them together into this nation state, you have the power and authority to be very strong, right? And then the axe, I think, is supposed to, I might be wrong about this. If I remember correctly, the axe represents like the monopoly on violence that the state has. So like only the state can be violent. Anyway, but that's the origin of the term. And then the Spanish fascists, what are they called? The oh my God. Flagellanists or something? Phalangists. Shit.
Phalangists.
So let me show you the phalangist image because it's a very similar idea.
That right.
There we go. Yeah, hold on. Just open image, a new tab.
And share that tab.
Yep. Actually, I'll just copy and paste this.
Yeah, exactly. What in the world is that?
Yeah, that's it. It worked. I don't know why that happened up there. Oh, that's just that's the URL. All right, I'll show it to you for a second and then get rid of it. Okay. So there's a bunch of arrows bundled together, and it's kind of like a fasci. And that's the origin of the word fascism. So now there was a follow-up question. What do you think of the word red fascist? A lot of libertarian socialists use it. Anybody who's fascist is not red, right? I mean, that's sorry. The question's for you. It annoys me.
I mean, this is just, like an attempt to justify the bullshit theory, the horseshoe theory that fascists and communists are actually the same the horseshoe theory without knowing the nature of fascism is to disguise as, pseudo revolution. They disguise as a revolution to fool the working class into supporting them. They took the aesthetics, of communists like red flag and even Nazi Germany calling themselves the National Socialists. Pol Pot in Vietnam called himself communist and want to have something like a year like zero, something like that. Like communist, something like that against capitalists. I mean, they took that as an aesthetic to fool the working class. But those people, those libertarian socialists, they do not understand that, or they intentionally misunderstand it.
Well,
they
I mean,
can
a lot of them,
equate-
I think you're being a little bit too generous, actually, because a lot of them would say that anybody who's a communist is a fascist. Like anybody, like Ho Chi Minh was a fascist. That's like a lot of people say that. So, and I would say, like, you've lost the script. Like, you have no clue. Like, what are you talking about? And by the way, I bristle at the. I just look. This might ruffle some feathers. It's like the word tanky.
Exactly.
It's like the word tanky.
It's
Yeah.
a fucking tanky.
I bristle at libertarian socialism or libertarian communism because it implies that communism is not liberatory or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's like communism is the best hope individuals have for freedom. But I don't want to get too sidetracked on that. Anyway, we're not fans of those words. They don't reflect reality accurately is probably the most kind words I can come up with for that. Okay, let's go back to the reading. Oh, thank goodness that I highlighted where we were, because otherwise that would take a while for me to figure out. Give me my book. So again,
it's basically a synonym for tanky. True.
Yeah, it's false consciousness. I
mean,
anybody who's a fascist is not red, okay?
Yeah.
If they're fascist, they're not red. They're not communists. There's no fascist in the world who wants the workers to build a stateless class of society, including the Strasserists. If you go back and read what Gregor Strasser wrote and the speeches that he made, he didn't want class revolution. He was basically like a Sockdam reformist, but fascist. And only a reformist for like Aryan people.
Yep.
It was just, it's not communism. Okay? There's no, if you're fascist, you're not red. Period. Sorry. It's annoying. Okay. So, just as for the same reason proletarians continually escape from their own class and come to join the serving ranks of the middle classes. The course of evolution predicted. So again, the important part is this highlighted part. The independent producer prefers his condition, even though it becomes more precarious every day, to that of the proletariat.
Yes.
It's a false consciousness thing. Okay. The course of evolution predicted has been predicted by, like earlier communists, has been checked by still another factor. At a certain stage of development, capitalism itself engenders middle class of a new kind. Their characteristic in comparison with the older ones is economic dependence. Listen to this, okay? So earlier they were talking about people who consider themselves economically independent. In other words, kind of like the more petty bourgeoisie people who own their own means of production. I own my own business. I'm a small businessman. I'm independent. Okay. Now there's this new kind of bourgeois proletariat that is dependent on the capitalist class. Unlike the independent petty bourgeois, you with me? Unlike the independent petty bourgeois, the newcomers no longer control the greater part of their instruments of production. If they are not, properly speaking, wage earners, they live from salaries, fees, or commissions. This is kind of like what people are today calling the professional managerial class or the labor aristocracy. But they're really just workers that have this kind of like dependent position on capitalism to maintain their modest comfort, right? Compared to the capitalist class who have billions of dollars, right? Kautsky was the first to draw attention to them. So we got Bernstein and Kautsky in one chapter. Giving me chills like the willies. Okay. He showed how the heads of modern enterprises delegate a part of their functions to appointed workers: engineers, designers, technicians, doctors, lawyers, attorneys. Right? Attorneys? Attached to the company. So, yeah. Okay. Furthermore, the great industrial combinations organize their own commercial outlets. They set up an army of distributors, agents, garage managers, repairmen, etc. The small artisan and little tradesman can survive only by renouncing their independence and indirectly becoming wage earners. think about it, all right? Like, take, for example, a small artisan. Let's take, for example, like a tradesman, like you own your own truck and you're a plumber. Well, these days, I don't know if you've looked into prices lately. Plumbers are very, like, the services of plumbers and electricians and contractors are very high. And I can tell you from working in Charleston, South Carolina, where a lot of wealthy people are moving in, and a lot of wealthy workers actually are moving in. Those trades depend very much on capitalist businesses and wealthy people to keep them existing, and especially to keep them in any degree of comfort. So they are not independent, and they can't just exist amidst the proletariat. And if you have a small business, or if you're an artisan, or if you're an artist or a painter, you need wealthy people, you need capitalists, you need capitalism to stay afloat. You are dependent on the system. And the idea of that capitalist class disappearing, therefore, causes you great anxiety. If you're an artist and you're selling $10,000 paintings every couple of months to wealthy capitalists, would it not make sense that maybe you would get nervous at the prospect of the capitalist class disappearing? Because they're how you get your bread and butter.
Yeah.
And they're how you get your decent lifestyle. You are dependent on the capitalist class per se. There's also, I don't know if this goes into, I can't remember, but there's an element of this with imperialism as well, that workers who live in the imperial core and therefore have kind of a more comfortable life because we're able to import cheaper goods and export suffering to the imperialized world, you become dependent on imperialism. That's why there are so many people who think of themselves as liberals and communists even, but they are Western chauvinist imperialists, dyed in the wool because they're terrified of a world in which imperialism no longer exists and modestly benefits them. The thing is that in both cases, if you're talking about domestically or with imperialism, the benefits aren't even that great.
Yeah, it's just like people who depended on the CIA, afraid that CIA one day will disappear.
Right. So, all right. Furthermore, the great industrialist combinations organize their own commercial outlets. They set up an army of distributors, agents, garage managers, repairmen, etc. The small artisan and little tradesmen can survive only by renouncing their independence and indirectly becoming wage earners. The small retailer becomes a branch manager for a chain store. The craftsman is reduced to the role of a skilled worker, etc. Does that make sense? So petty bourgeois people are getting reduced to
workers.
Bourgeois proletariat. And all of these people, petty bourgeois and bourgeois proletariat, are becoming increasingly dependent on capitalism, and I would say also imperialism. I would add that into the mix. Although they have no economic independence, the individuals composing the new middle classes have by no means sunk into the proletariat. As Lucien Laurat has written, the work they do is of a particularly skilled nature, and although their remuneration takes the form of salary or wages, the fact remains that their directing function in the economic process brings many of them close to the capitalist class. An extremely large section of this social category continues for the present to consider themselves above the proletariat. This is the USA middle class mindset all the way. And it's propagated by the media. I remember when I was a kid, I'm trying to think back to the indoctrination I received as a child. There is when I was a kid, I would see things that would say like, oh no, the middle class has lost, 3% of income or something like that, like a news article, right? And it wouldn't even mention poor people. And when I was a kid, I would have this question in the back of my head when I was reading this newspaper article or whatever. It'd be like, shouldn't we be more concerned with the poor people? Like, why are there so many articles about the middle class? I started to notice that as soon as I got into like middle school and they were having us read articles about economics and stuff like that. And I was just like, what? All these articles are about the middle class. Everyone, politicians in the USA talk about the middle class. They all want you to think that you're in this special category.
Yeah,
you're in the special part of the working. You're not a worker. You're not poor. You're in the middle class. You have some respectability. You're above those.
It's like, we know that you're not rich. We know that you still suffer, but at the same time, you're special. You're not as those poor working class people. You're something special. It's like it's a way to comfort them, and it's a way to give them false consciousness.
It's 100% false consciousness. That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. It's designed to make you not have solidarity with the rest of the workers. And it's especially in an imperialist context, it's especially designed to make you not have any solidarity with people in imperialized countries. Those are just those poor people from the third world, from developing countries. I have nothing in common with them. I'm a middle class American, blah, 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 blah. And it separates. It's like an us and them thing. Instead of class analysis, which makes you see all the workers of the world as your comrades, and you want to free and liberate all of humanity.
Now you alienate yourself from the people that you share the interest with.
Yes. Long before the war, I think at this point he's talking about World War I, because this was written in the 30s, right? Mm-hmm. Long before the war, the conditions of the old middle classes was growing constantly worse. As for the rapidly growing new middle class, they painfully felt their economic dependence and saw with apprehension the day approaching when they would be reduced to the status of the wage earner, pure and simple. So they kind of see the writing on the wall. They know, they can tell that they're losing their independence. Especially if you're like an artisan or a craftsperson or whatever. Look at today, all the artists, what do? They work in marketing.
Yeah.
Everyone I know that I went to college with that was an artist. They are designing shit for corporations, or they're somehow using their art to serve corporations, and it's usually through some kind of marketing vehicle, right? And now they're getting challenged by fucking AI.
Yeah.
Quote unquote AI. I know it's not really AI. That's putting pressure on them as well. And their response to that, unfortunately, for the last century plus, has not been to have class consciousness, but rather to separate themselves further from the lowly workers, as they would put it.
The warehouse workers.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see Amazon executives who might be, technically earning wages or whatever. They're not throwing in their lot with Amazon warehouse workers. Mm-mm. Just as you don't see tech workers in the USA throwing in their lot with Indian and African tech workers.
Yeah. No.
They don't see themselves as the same working class. And that's really all that this is saying here. The war accelerated both the pauperization of the old middle class and the proletarianization of the new. The war was financed in great part by the holders of small savings. So this is another thing. When we have war, when we have instability, when we have all these problems, who is it hurting? And this is something that liberals talk about all the time. It's technically kind of true. It doesn't hurt the billionaires.
No.
Look at COVID and all the shit that's happened in the last 3-4 years.
They make more money.
The capitalists are making more money. Mm-hmm. When we have a war, the capitalists are making more and more money. It's this middle class, quote unquote, segment, this strata that will suffer. And this was true back during the World War I even as well. Monetary devaluation and the funding of government debts cut off the income of small investors. The little taxpayers were crushed by tax levies. The salaries of functionaries and office employees were not increased proportionately. The shrinkage and buying power of the masses diminished the business of the little merchants. The competition of monopoly capital remorselessly drove the small independent manufacturers to the wall. Technicians came more and more to feed themselves the slaves of the corporations that employed them. These symptoms, observable in the post-war capitalist countries, appeared with particular violence in Italy and still more in Germany. They appeared with violence. Okay?
We have about 10 minutes left.
You got 10 minutes left. All right. Well, let's just go through the historical context and then we can wrap it up. The fall of the lira, the currency in Italy, cruelly squeezed the owners of fixed income. Their conditions appeared all the more painful to the small investors, the holders of pensions, and those retired, because the proletariat had obtained, thanks to union action, a partial readjustment of its wages. At the same time, the economic crisis had driven many artisans and small merchants into bankruptcy. Industrial concentration, which had already whipped up, was going on faster than ever. As to the lot of the middle classes, Rousseau writes, receiving incomes much lower than those of wage earners and forced to support much greater expenses both for their living and their education, their life after the war became a daily torture. Too refined to adapt themselves, this is important, too refined to adapt themselves to the narrow existence of the proletariat. Basically, I'm too good to become a warrior, a worker. I'm too good to become a worker. Too poor to bear the burden of the continually increasing prices, they felt themselves caught in the pincers that were slowly crushing them. Mistreated by governments whose least concern was to satisfy their needs, exploited by the newly rich who had built its fortunes on the ruins of their own, the middle classes felt they were losing every day a little of their rank and their former superiority. Now, the real solution to this problem is class consciousness and realizing the role that you play in the system of capitalism. Someone asked what we're reading. We are reading Fascism and Big Business by Daniel Guerin, which you can get on the internet if you search for it. It's not hard to find. Daniel Guerin, Fascism and Big Business. We are on chapter 2. And I think I can tell you the page number in a second if you really want to read along with us. Oh, the page is at the top, so you'll have to just be patient. Or you can just search for this if you're not reading a print copy. Okay. In Germany, during this time, the fate of the German middle class was still more tragic. While under the empire, they enjoyed appreciable material security and moral prestige. The total collapse of the mark, the Deutschmark, bled them white. Those with fixed incomes and savings were reduced to the blackest misery. Now, remember the pictures of the wheelbarrows full of money in the early Weimar Republic, where the inflation was really, really bad? Yeah. Again, that wasn't hurting the industrialists and the super wealthy people. They maintained their power all through World War I, all through the Weimar Republic, all through fascism in Nazi Germany, and beyond. They're still wealthy today. Yeah. It's very important to understand that the industrialists who helped Hitler to rise to power and who made money all through World War II maintain their power to this day. The families that owned Porsche and BMW and IB Farben, and I mean the list goes on and on and on and on.
I mean, you know, all the Chaebol families in South Korea are now still freaking rich from the fascist Germany's empire.
As are the Saibatsu capitalists. The capitalists are not the ones that suffered. The ones who were suffering when they were having the wheelbarrows full of Deutschmarks in the Weimar era were the middle class. Yes. After the stabilization of the mark, the public loans of the Reich, the states, and the municipalities were revaluated at only about 5% of their original value. Whole social strata of respected professions fell to the level of the proletariat. And the fact that the idea that they were ever not of the proletariat was always false consciousness. Fell to the level of the proletariat in spite of the desperate resistance by individuals to their fate. Writes Muller van den Broek. The salaries or fees of functionaries or office employees were reduced far more than the wages of workers in industry. A professor was paid less than a proletarian. After the inflation, 97% of the Germans were without capital. Then came the rationalization, which took the form of accentuated concentration and trustification. The middle classes suffered as consumers. They had to pay artificially raised prices for manufactured products. The little manufacturers and artisans were put out of business by the competition of the trusts and cartels, and the banks gave them credit only at exorbitant rates. So yeah, they were getting fucked objectively. Yeah. The small merchants were hard hit by the increase in big stores and chain stores and by the appearance of one-price stores. Big stores such as Tietz, Wertheim, and Karstadt embarked on an increasing number of activities: hairdressing parlors, bathing establishments, food shops, fish shops, butcher shops, tea rooms, restaurants, dressmaking shops, manufacturing and repair shops of all sorts. So all these little, mom and pop shops. Mm-hmm. After 1925, the one-price stores multiplied in all the large and medium-sized towns. In 1931, 3 companies, one founded by Karstadt, another by Tietz, and the third by American Woolworth Company. Mm-hmm. So these were like the Walmarts of their day. Yeah. owned 250 shops. The one-price stores were very successful owing to the cheapness of their goods, made possible by the purchase of stocks at advantageous prices and by the rapid turnover of their capital. So big business defeats the mom and pop shops. We saw it happen again when I was a kid growing up with Walmart. Mm-hmm. It's just like this pattern. Like I was saying earlier, you know, somebody will pop up into the labor aristocracy position, but it's always temporary. Nobody stays there forever. No category of worker, no trade, no profession, no market segment lasts forever under capitalism, because capital will glom up everything it can for its own profits. So I think we kind of get the idea. I think we can call it an end of the reading now. But hopefully that gives you some idea of how the middle class comes to be absorbed into fascism. And hopefully maybe next week we'll read more. But if not, I definitely, either way, I recommend you read this book, Fascism and Big Business by Daniel Guerin. I'll put the cover of the book up on screen so people can look at that if they want to. Oh, we just got a donation from a club, and thank you so much. Says, hey, great stream. These streams educating about fascism have been so helpful and relevant. I appreciate that. Thank you. Because I know we keep talking about the same thing every week, like fascism, and like I know maybe some of you are sick of it, but I just think that it's very important that we all understand this stuff, especially right now, because the material conditions are just getting so bad, and that's something that fascists take advantage of and leverage for their own gains. How do I get this thing to go away? There. Okay, it went away. All right, so here's the cover of the book. Luna's a sleepy. First you were silly, now you're sleepy. Luna's always sleepy all the time. All right. Here's the book. Fascism and Big Business, Daniel Guerin. Check it out. Give it a read.
Daniel Guerin.
Yeah. So that's it's very important to understand, especially if you come from a middle class background, or you are in the middle class, or you know people in the middle class. Mm. The fact of the matter is, the middle class material interests, and even the petty bourgeoisie, this is a much harder sell, but even the petty bourgeoisie material class interests really align with the proletariat. Mm. And if we could convince these people of that and raise their class consciousness, A, it forestalls them becoming fascists, and B, you know, it benefits them, right? And C, it benefits the working class. That being said, a lot of these middle class fascists are not, the middle class fascists are not our priority, okay? If someone's already a fascist, we can't be spending all of our time and energy trying to like convert them over to communism.
Exactly. I'm sorry, but they are too far down the hill that it should not be our target anymore.
Tubbo says, when is the stream time changing? Now, wait, before we answer this question, one last thing about the middle class fascists. I do think it's a good thing to try to inoculate middle class people against fascism before they become fascists, you know, and try to liberate or raise class consciousness with like liberal middle class people so that they don't become fascists, so we can at least neutralize them from becoming fascists. That's probably less of a waste of time. But once somebody has already become a fascist, it's like you're spending so much more energy per person when there are like millions of people you could be spending your energy on that are more.
It's like, you know, it's like a very simple tactic in, you know, having an exam in schools of mine. For example, like math exam, they have a bunch of questions there. The first thing you should do is to deal with easy question first and leave the hardest question the last.
Well, okay. But that being said, there's always this people say, oh, so you just want to abandon them to fascism? You just want to abandon them? It's like, no, the way we deal with fascists is very well established.
Yes.
You smash fascism. You do not tolerate fascism. Mm-hmm. You don't debate and argue and have pleasant little cozy business relationships with fascists. You smash fascism. You make it intensely uncomfortable and impossible for fascists to be out in public. Exactly. Anytime fascists say something fascist, you don't sit there and argue with them. You smash fascism however you can, the quickest way that you possibly can. You do not tolerate bigotry and fascism, that kind of thing. And this is not just my opinion. This is what sociologists and psychologists have shown. If you go back and watch my Pewdie Pipeline video where I talk about stochastic T-errorism, you will see the pattern of, if you allow bigotry and fascism, if you tolerate that socially, it gets more and more bold. But if you confront it and smash it immediately, and there are so many studies, I'm going to make a follow-up to the Beauty Pipeline video soon, because there's so much research that's easy to find, that when you confront bigotry and fascism immediately and strongly and harshly, then bigots become less emboldened, less likely to speak, and that violence is less likely to accelerate and fascism is less likely to break out.
I mean, I saw it with bullies in my middle class school. My middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Because like at that time, I told you so many times, but like this is another point I want to add, is that there was a boy bully in the class, and at that time girls started to wear like bras,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a big scandal, and then team of like boy bulliers go and literally harass girls for wearing bras, something like that. It's like very, very disgusting, and sexually harassment like that. And it was going on for a few months, and nobody dared say anything because it's none of their business, or they're not the victims, or like they just like don't want to have any trouble with those people. But it was so bad that at one point I had to stand up and confront that bully and stop harassing that poor girl. And it is true that first of all, I saved that girl. That bully never mentioned that harassment again, and I did not get bullied after that, because I was tough enough to stand up. It's like, yeah, I mean, I was scared for months on end. Like, should I do this? I want to do this, but should I do this? And then I finally did it. I mean, it's the point that like they are not as tough as they look once you're strong enough and you get together and you confront them. They're not as dangerous as they are usually, but of course, I'm not saying everyone is like that. Like, you need to consider very carefully before you do that. But if you feel like it's going to be safe for you and you are not alone in doing that, we should be, very confronting them.
Yeah, and this bears up with the research. I mean, they've done so many studies on like workplaces and schools, that sort of thing, where if people are permissive about bigoted attitudes and language and that sort of thing, then the bigots get more and more bold, and they get worse and worse over time.
Exactly. And
so
I kept that as,
obvious.
Something like a thing that I always follow in my workplace. Years ago, when I still work in the office, I always tell myself to be confront about, any racism, sexism, and bigotry in the working class. I would be the first one to stand up and fight against it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what you got to do. And next week we will maybe talk more about fascism, maybe talk about some other stuff. If you have any thoughts or comments or anything, if you're watching the VOD, let us know. Somebody asked, by the way, hold on. Where's that? When is the stream time changing? It may be changing next week. I will do an announcement. We'll do an announcement on Luna Oil Live and Non-Compete Live.
Yeah.
If you're not already subscribed to those on YouTube, go to youtube.com/non-compete live and or youtube.com/Luna Oil Live. And we will announce as soon as we can, as soon as we know when the stream time might change. But yes, we are considering changing the stream time to 8 p.m. Eastern time so that our comrade Grant the Slopstash, who's part of our cooperative, can produce for us. So we will, we'll let you know. We'll inform you. It might be next week, but maybe not. Just depends on how quickly we can get organized. So, all right. Anything else, Luna?
Do not tolerate fascism.
And try to not do nothing.
Try to not do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And confront racism, sexism, and bigotry.
All forms of shittiness that divides the working class. That's it. So, in closing, Luna, you want to sing a song?
The song that
I don't know, just a song.
Okay. Đôi khi em muốn tin rằng mình đừng có nhau bao giờ. Đôi khi em vẫn mong thiên đường ta có.
Don't slur so much.
Sẽ không thể tan.
Staccato.
Quên nhau ta có quên.
Shoulders back.
Nhưng càng thêm nhớ thêm
Mouth open.
nhiều. Nước mắt cũng đã khô. chẳng còn để không.
Whoa, we got a super chat. Last second super chat. Before you guys go, thank you, Luna, for recommending Girl of Hanoi. It moved me to tears, and now I have great respect and appreciation for the courage and solidarity of these people. If you don't know what they're talking about, go to youtube.com/LunaOy and look at Luna's second to last video. Definitely go back and watch Luna's most recent video, which is on democratic centralism. We will see you Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern U.S. time on Luna's channel, youtube.com/LunaOy live or twitch.tv/Luna_Oy. Did I finally get that right?
Twitch. Luna_,
Yes. All right. And we'll see you then. We'll see you soon.
We
We talked about this last week. Henry Ford was a Nazi. Adidas is a Nazi company. Fanta's a Nazi because they couldn't get Coke. Yeah, true stuff. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.